theory of everything. Uh, this isn't a light topic to get into. It's kind of a very heavy-handed topic. But briefly explained in the best way that I can, because I'm not gonna get into everything right now. It's just too long of a topic to fully explain to any one person. But my this is my theory of everything. And it isn't just a theory anymore. It's literally like things that I've learned over the course of my lifetime that have culminated into a new system of belief. But briefly explained, I guess I should just start at the beginning. When I was young, when I was really young, I was in Catholic school for a long time. Right, this is where like everything started. I was in Catholic school. I was taught the whole, like everything about God, everything about the Catholic faith, everything about Christianity and whatnot. And I recognized that a lot of these things were just stories, right? Like I recognized that like maybe there's a possibility that Jesus didn't exist, right? That maybe the Christian faith wasn't 100% accurate to history. I recognize those kinds of things as a kid because like a lot of the tenets of the Catholic Church didn't necessarily line up with the tenets of being a good person, and a lot of the tenets of being a good person were just things that I don't like to brag or anything, but I was always a good person when I was younger. I always had morality. You know, it didn't matter to me if you were gay. It didn't matter to me if you were whatever you were. Like I didn't like the pedophilia in the church. That there were things in the church that were going on that I didn't necessarily agree with when I was really young. Right? So, but the one thing that stuck with me throughout my entire time in the Catholic Church was that I had a feeling, right? I had a really deep down feeling in my spirit that was unexplainable at the time because I hadn't experienced the world to the extent that I've experienced it now. But I had a feeling that God existed, right? And that's when I birthed the theory of everything because I took it upon myself. I wanted to know more about the world. I wanted to know why I had these feelings. I wanted to know why I like even though it didn't make sense scientifically from a purely empirical explanation, even though I couldn't explain it, I knew that God was real, like deep down in my soul, right? A lot of you probably feel this, like even though people can tell you over and over again that, oh, God isn't real, and you're wasting your time with your faith. That's how I felt for a long time because I was in Catholic school and I didn't believe in a lot of the tenets that they believed in, like because I didn't believe in healing. I didn't believe in these weird out there things that they say that Christians can do because I had never experienced it. But despite that, I did have an innate belief in God. I call it a belief because at the time I didn't necessarily have the scientific understanding to know why I believe that. But, and this is where the next thing comes in. Nikola Tesla had a theory, right? Nikola Tesla had a theory about the workings of the universe. He believed that human intuition was a stronger indicator of scientific evidence than anything else. He believed that people innately had this deep down inside them feeling about how the universe worked that they couldn't explain necessarily because they weren't well enough educated to explain it, but that could explain the fabric of the universe. right? So even though I didn't necessarily know about Nikola Tesla's theory, I later in life developed this same intuition about the workings of the universe, and it's just weird that we came to the same conclusions. But that's what I always like to quote when I'm talking about my theory of everything, because that's what you have to start to kind of know in your spirit when you're starting this journey of enlightenment, is that people have a deeper understanding of reality than even they understand inside of them. And that depending on how in tuned with the, people call it the Akashic records, depending on how in tune with the universe you are, you can have deeper levels of understanding about how everything works, about how science works, about how religion works, about just like how anything works. Just based off your intuition, you can have a deeper understanding of how any of these things work just because you're in tune with the universe or whatever. And I would later come to call it God, about these inner teachings. And so when I was a little boy, let's go back before I developed this theory of intuition, before I found out about Nikola Tesla. Let's go back to when I was first formulating my theory. I when I was a kid, I decided that I was going to spiritually test everything. And when I say spiritually test, I mean I was gonna put through everything through a fine tooth comb. I was gonna I was gonna search for answers in places that I didn't necessarily think I could find them. I was going to look for the truth of the universe, right? I was gonna find out one way or another if I was right or if I was wrong, because I had these spiritual beliefs, but I didn't know them to be correct. You know, when you have a belief but you don't know that they're correct, like I decided that I was going to put everything through a fine tooth comb, and I was going to find out what was right and what was wrong. And then inevitably, I found out what was right. I found out what was right, and I found out what was wrong. It started off like that, and I had other spiritual beliefs when I was younger. Like I believed in chakra when I was really young, right? I believed in the energy field that people possess, and I believed that if you had enough of it, you could do jutsu like Naruto, right? And I didn't know where these beliefs were coming from, but that's just something I believed as a young child, that we had this energy field, and I could literally feel it when I was young. You know, I could literally feel when I got my chakra aroused, and I could bring it outside of myself, and I could become a little bit, tiniest bit stronger than I normally was. You know, and these tenets, this idea and this spirituality, this belief in the spiritual practices like Ki and like Christianity. These were the stepping stones that inevitably brought me towards my furthering my theory of everything. And I guess my next step was when I was a teenager, I started believing in the electromagnetic field of humans. I started believing because like they tell you straight up in science classes that your electromagnetic field, your neurons, your nervous system is electric based, right? That your brain is electric based. So I took that, and I took the theory of plasma, because you know electricity is a plasma. I took the theory of plasma, and I figured out that when you feel different emotions, the electricity in your brain changes different colors. You know, it's kind of like a rainbow. It's not necessarily one color all the time, like people might imagine electricity is blue, people might imagine it is yellow. No, when you experience different emotions, my initial theory of this and I this isn't necessarily like completely important to what I'm talking about, but it does set the groundwork for a lot of what comes next. My theory about this was that when you feel different emotions, you know, your electricity literally changes color inside your body, and that's such a beautiful thought, you know? Like if you're happy, it'll turn red. You know, like my color wheel that I always talk about. When you're happy, it'll turn red. When you're sad, it'll turn blue. When you're loving, it'll turn orange. It's sorry, my finger was starting to get a little bit, just the tiniest bit numb from holding that phone for so long. You know that this is the basis of everything, you know? Everything. I figured out all this stuff as a kid, and I didn't even realize that I was figuring it out, but you know, all spoiler alert, it turns out that everything that I thought when I was a little kid was true, and that I was so tapped into the Akashic records that I was literally like seeing beyond the veil of reality, seeing things that other people didn't necessarily see because they just weren't so in tune with the Akashic records. They just weren't in tune with the universe the way I was. You know, and that's not necessarily to brag or anything like that. I'm just saying that I was more gifted in the spiritual arts even just as a kid than like most people will be in their entire life, and I use that to start to formulate my theories, you know, and this is where another big part of it comes in. I eventually came to the conclusion, you know, because people were always searching for the quote unquote soul of the body. I eventually came to the conclusion that people were like computers, right? People were like computers because we had very similar. I don't know if I want to say chemistry or structure. I'll say structure because we had because computers don't necessarily have chemistry, but we had very similar structures to computers as humans. You know, like they say that our neurons have like electricity flowing through it. That's how a computer works. You know, you plug it into the wall and that's feeding it. You plug it into the wall and it gets a charge and it performs all these tasks and stuff. And I eventually came in my older age to equate this electricity as being the soul of a human being or even a computer or anything like that. I eventually came to equate the electricity within the human body as a soul, right? So I'm talking about these things because these are the conclusions I've come to in my older age about the fundamentals of the universe, right? And these are the basics of the theory of everything. These were my basics. These are where I started. These were the fundamentals when I was young. You know, these were my founding principles, I guess you would say, of what I could understand about the universe. I never had proof of any of this for a long time until one day I was approached by, you can call them teachers, I guess. You can call them teachers. And they came to me and they said, "John, you know your little theory of everything? It's right. And we have proof about it." Now imagine me just being this ordinary guy, just like I have a couple of cool theories about how the universe works. Like I believe in God and I believe in chakra and I believe in the electromagnetic soul and I believe in your inner spirit changing colors based off of what emotion you hold. Like the same thing as when you add different gases to a plasma. Imagine my surprise when I'm approached by real scientists who have actually tested what I know. And they're like, John, you're 100% correct. John, all of your theories about how the universe works, they're 100% correct. And not only are they not theories anymore, we can show you the application of how they work. Right? So then they taught me the basics of ki. They taught me the basics of how to control your energy. They taught me the basics of, if you don't have enough spiritual energy, you can always draw it into yourself. Right? They taught me the basics of that. If you don't have enough spiritual energy, even if you draw it into yourself, you could always multiply it and make it more than it already is. Right? They started to teach me about how to manipulate the fabric of reality, how to become 100 times stronger than a normal human. They started to teach me these fundamentals about these things that I never understood. Right? And the further I understood them, and the more I explored how the system works, how do I say this? The more I explored how the fundamentals of science worked, and started to discover more about the emotional spectrum, the more I found out about quantum physics, the more I found out about how to manipulate the fabric of reality, how a human can go from being poor little old me to being an almighty doer of things, who can like teleport if they want to, who can like fly if they want to. And all that matters is that you capture the right emotional spectrum on your framework of being able to do things, on your framework of emotions. Right? They started to teach me about, I think you get the picture. Right? They proved my theory of everything. They proved my theory of everything to me. They showed me that the majority of what I believed was correct. And the only thing that never got 100% proven, but kind of did at the same time, is God. But you know, if a human can manipulate the fabric of reality, what makes us think that we didn't have a creator who knew how to manipulate the fabric of reality? So even though that never got 100% proven, it's still a fundamental of what I believe, because I came to eventually become God. And that's all I want to say about the theory of everything right now. I'll get into like deeper things later, like things I found out about like enlightenment and the expanding of the soul and other things like that. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I just wanted to explain the core tenets of the theory of everything, and why I'm so stuck in my ways about it, and why I know I'm correct about everything. I know I'm correct about my beliefs, and nobody can ever shake me from them, because I've literally experienced them in my life. Right? A lot of people can't say that things that they believed when they were a child are actually true, but things that I believed when I was a child are true. And to me, that's just amazing. You know, that things that I started off when I was a child eventually, I wouldn't say became reality, but were reality all along, and that I was just on a journey of discovering the truth. To me, that's just amazing. Peace.